see that potential for maybe some rotation inside of that as well. And we also look at that also in Raymond. So I don't think that's out of the question as well. I'll look at a couple of different spots, but of course we're going to focus on maybe one or two locations within this storm that have the potential for rotation. And it's from Vandalia right here, and it's also on the south side of this tornado warning here in Fayette, and it's south of 70. And there are two spots right here. And once again, we talk about oftentimes where we have toward the radar and away from the radar. Two spots right here. Vandalia, south of 70. This is a severe thunderstorm warning, but the possibility of a tornado is there. We still see these little weak areas of rotation within. And then right here, and it doesn't look like much. I know it's kind of pixelated. That's the way the radar's set up and the distance away from the actual radar sites. But those are the two areas that we're looking at. So one of them has prompted the National Weather Service to issue that tornado warning for Fayette until 7:15. But we're starting to see a few more of these storms develop now. And so that's what we're looking ahead. And you also see this as part of this severe thunderstorm warning here in areas near Raymond. And this is what I kind of mentioned here as I kind of looped this. You can see where it's not all that tight necessarily, but it's producing up to 60-mile-an-hour wind. And those are the two main areas that we're looking at as far as severe thunderstorm warning and winds up to 55 or 60 miles an hour. If you're in the St. Louis metro area, you're on the Missouri side, we don't particularly have this. This is mainly in the Metro East, mainly on the Illinois side. So as that severe thunderstorm warning remains in place for areas in Fayette County, it's still for a couple of different reasons. One, it's this area which prompted the initial initial tornado warning right here, where we're starting to see maybe on the south edge of this, south of 70, and then also near Vandalia, and it's really upstream on 70. As you go 70 east, I think this would be an area that I'd look at for perhaps maybe a little bit more rotation. So if I really want to zoom in, I mean, I'm talking about 40 here, right off the interstate, 40 into State Highway 185. This would be an area that I'd look at and perhaps think between Brownstown. These are areas kind of upstream that I want to look at and give you a track, because I'd like you to just go ahead and get inside your safe space if you're not already there. I mean, this is within the next 5 minutes, so you have some time. The next 5 to 10 minutes. These are the areas that I'd just like you to do that on the safe side, just because we're starting to see maybe a little rotation, if nothing else. Let me flash the radar back on so you can see. We obviously have some very loud thunderstorms producing a lot of lightning and some very heavy rain and maybe even some smaller hail. But it's probably the back edge, and you can kind of see it in this mode here specifically. North of the interstate here in Vandalia, you're starting to see this kind of hook back around behind this. You're starting to see that here just on the south side of the. This is where we're starting to perhaps maybe get a little bit more rotation on this side, and then maybe here as well. Those are the two areas of this entire storm which have prompted either a severe thunderstorm warning with the possibility of a tornado involved in it, which includes Vandalia, and then also this tornado warning which is in place for Fayette until 7:15. So those are the two areas that either your sirens are going off or your phones are buzzing, or a little bit of both, because we have, of course, the severe thunderstorm warning for Fayette on one side, and then we also have a tornado warning on the other side. So it's two separate areas that are prompting these tornado warnings and then of these severe thunderstorm warnings. That's what we're going to continue to monitor here as we look at those two areas, which may be perhaps producing a little bit of rotation. And we see that here on some of these where we go south of the interstate there. Like I mentioned, it's this area which perhaps is producing not only wind, and you see that on both sides. If I take the polygon off real quick and cue up the wind, you're able to see that we have, a little bit of rotation here with about 20-mile-an-hour wind, 30-mile-an-hour wind on one side, where you have 35 to 40-mile-an-hour wind on the other side. I think there is a better threat for high gusty wind on this storm to the north, and that's where you're starting to see those active severe thunderstorm warnings to the north. And there are a couple of spots, really. That's where it's been most active, north and east of the immediate St. Louis area. But right now, Fayette County, you have a couple of different warnings. One is a severe thunderstorm warning with a possibility of rotation there south of I-70, and then you have this tornado warning until 7:15. Like I mentioned, two specific areas as we loop this. You can almost see a little bit of that rotation right there where the wind is being drawn into that side of the storm, and I'm going to try to draw this in for you as best as I can, being drawn in right in here, and you start to see that. And that's probably the area that we're seeing the best opportunity for any sort of rotation. And then even on the other side of that, maybe closer to St. James, you can see same thing. Wind maybe starting to be drawn in that way where you're getting these weak areas of rotation as I flip to the other product, and you can really see that in those reds and greens. Those are the two spots that you see wind toward the radar, wind away from the radar. I get that it's pixelated, but those are the areas that we're specifically looking at for any areas where we have the possibility of those wind damage threats.
I wonder if we can get over to Max 2 and take a look at Max 2, Eric. I've got it kind of zoomed in, and it'll show you what, I've got the scope on there, and so it'll show you what we're looking at with these storms. It looks like the one, and you're looking over in Vandalia, that's the eastern part of that storm. The one back to the west is starting to actually look a little bit better here, just south of Interstate 70. So you're just south of Interstate 70 where we're seeing that circulation. And this is showing up on the radar out of Lincoln, Illinois. So we're scanning from Lincoln, Illinois. That's where you've got the winds tight up against each other, just south of 70. That is headed towards, where is it going towards? Otsego here shortly. So, you know, and right along that outer road, Highway 40 kind of runs along just south of 70 there. So that's where this is at this moment, if it's on the ground. We don't know if it's on the ground, but that's a pretty strong circulation showing up there now.
Yeah, and Scott, these are the types of storms that we expected with this tornado warning or this tornado watch that's still in place for our entire area until 10 o'clock. And what we're going to continue to monitor here is the fact that we have a couple of different areas that are starting to see this little brief circulation where some of them are part of that storm in Fayette, which, as we've kind of mentioned, almost you could circle and sit here and as you have on one side there, Scott has shown and kind of looping that. What you're able to see as Scott continues to draw and loop along 70 there is that specific area, how it started to get brighter and even maybe move a little south of the interstate going backwards. So this is kind of a nice X-ray where we use a different radar product. The radar produces all these products for us, and this one is the wind and the velocity that shows us toward and away from the storm. So Scott's kind of taking a look at some of this and showing us where some of these storms may be starting to show that brief, weak rotation outside. So as we continue to monitor this, that's going to be the big story for this specific storm as this tornado warning is in place for Fayette until 7:15. Moving forward, as we still look at a couple of different spots, not only there, but you're starting to see a couple of different spots on my end now that we're back looking at this one. These are the areas that I could probably circle, and you can look at, we've talked about how these little mini areas of rotation, there's one, those are the two spots right now that there are almost tornado warnings within oneself, where we have these little minor areas of rotation, and that's what Scott kind of did that X-ray on here, as we'll do something similar on this side, where they're starting to turn just a little bit, and that's going to be enough to get closer to Otsego here, right across 70, and that's going to be enough to prompt the National Weather Service to keep that tornado warning in place until 7:15. And so that's why we are continuing to stay with you, because we still have that possibility where, we're still monitoring a little bit of rotation here inside that. So those are the areas right now that we're mainly monitoring here from Otsego right across I-70. And I think this is going to be something that we look at here over the next 10 minutes because it really hasn't moved very quickly. I've looped this for the last 30 minutes or so, and it's still St. James. You could have been on the south side there with some of that rotation, and that's an area where I told you to maybe go inside your safe space a few minutes ago, but now you're running into this direct area where, you may be seeing this move right over St. James here, or very close to it over the next few minutes. And so that's what we're going to look at in terms of some of these minor areas of rotation. I do want to continue to look at this storm to the north as well. I don't see that tight area of toward and away from the radar in terms of wind, but there still is a 50, 60 mile an hour wind threat with that just as ahead. Those are the only two storms that we're looking at right now, and the most recent radar product near Otsego is starting to show that here at the moment. So those are the areas right now. This is the only spot within this this tornado warning until about 7:15. And that's what we'll look at here as this continues to rotate, sit here. I can almost give you the clear with, I want you to stay inside your safe space here at Otsego for the next 15 minutes. Let's call it 15 minutes and at least see out the rest of this severe weather warning, as we have this tornado warning. We also have the severe thunderstorm warning in place as well. There's a couple of different spots where we've started to see some bigger hail as well.
Yeah, that's what I was going to tell you. We've got hail that's bigger than quarters right now with this storm. So it's got hail. It has some gusty winds. We've got some rotation in there. So you need to be in your safe place at this point. That's where the hail core is showing up. And keep in mind, this runs just a few minutes behind schedule, behind what's really happened. But that hail core indicating, hail maybe up to the size 1.5 inches or a little bit larger than that, Gary. So you've got multiple threats going on there. These storms are definitely intense. But right now in the metro, things are fairly quiet. Again, this is east of St. Louis, out along Interstate 70, the worst storm right now east of Vandalia. And then you have the other one that's up east of Interstate 55 there in Montgomery County, all in Illinois.
Yeah, and most of them have been in Illinois, and those are the only severe storms that we have at this moment. As I show you, kind of the back edge here, and you can see where, right here is, right about here is where the front is, and alongside of that, we're seeing a few storms start to develop. But at this moment, the severe weather is mainly on the Illinois side, and we'll still see that spin. And as Scott mentioned, you can start to see still, once again, right near Otsego, and probably the biggest hail, even as we look at some of this and look at a different version of this, storm-wise, if we just look at this right here specifically, this area of the storm, I just zoomed this out a little bit. You can see where we have upwards of 40,000-foot cloud tops, and that's telling you where you're having probably the biggest hail core. It would be right about, if we're looking right about here, this is right about where the biggest hail core is, just off to the northeast of Otsego, and that's going to impact the interstate, obviously, and travel. So as we continue to monitor these weak areas of spin that have prompted the tornado warning to be in place for Fayette County, once again, as a reset, this tornado warning is in place for Fayette County until 7:15. And it really has been probably had two life cycles where we've had, over the last 30 minutes, you've had one on the southern edge of this polygon of the tornado warning in place, where you've seen this right here, and that's kind of moved out of that specific part of the polygon. And then you've also seen this back edge storm, and that's where we're probably focusing the most of anywhere. And that's part of what I just showed you near Otsego here. You're still in St. James, probably within the next 10 minutes, we still will have to see how this rotation remains in place, because I think it's something that we're still going to monitor whether or not it holds together before it kind of moves out of our area. But even as we look at this specifically, you have a couple of these brighter areas north of Otsego where you have some of the potential for not only wind to get on this side of it, and this is where I would expect that the wind maybe is starting to turn things a little bit, but you also have this hail core right about here, right near Otsego, maybe like Scott mentioned, it's just a little bit behind, but that's the area right along the interstate that we're still looking at just over quarter-sized hail. So as we look at the damage to cars that are maybe just going along, and trucks and everybody just driving along 70 run into this very quickly, that's all part of that tornado warning. So you've got a couple of things here as I'll move this out. We have this small area of hail, which is right along 70. We also have the possibility where we still see some of this rotation here. Now this is moving a little bit and it's weakening. You don't see those bright colors of green. You don't see those bright colors of red close to each other. They're more dull color. They're darker color. That means you don't see that strength of rotation, but it's still right about here that's going to continue to prompt this tornado warning and keep it in place. So there are a couple of different severe weather warnings behind this. You see a lot of polygons mixed in. You have the severe thunderstorm warning for Fayette, which is ongoing. You also have the tornado warning, which is ongoing here until 7:15. I realize this is right on the edge of our viewing area, but we want to keep you posted because it's this area right there that's prompting this tornado warning here. That's still going on for another, I would say, 5 to 7 minutes. So, we want to continue to keep you posted about this specific area And it's right here. I think it's right along State Route 185. This is probably where the center of circulation, if we had to pinpoint it, is going on. And it's just right about here. And it doesn't look like much, right? It's just these two areas of color, like I mentioned, still heading towards St. James or very close to it. And that's where the possible tornado remains in place here at this moment as we continue to monitor the fact that we may start to see a little bit of this rotate. And this is where we're still looking at, as even we have the different product, that area in Vandalia. Vandalia, you're in the clear at this moment, but we still have the possibility of some larger hail. We still have the possibility that this storm is rotating to some degree. This is where we're starting to see some of that larger hail. And like I mentioned, as I zoom out, you see that these cloud tops are up to 40,000 feet. Maybe the hail signature isn't quite there as it was before, but there still are some areas on the south side of Otsego here, right along 185, that are rotating and kind of headed in the direction of St. James here. And that's what we're looking at here for the most part. Scott, yeah,
there's some side lobe contamination, in this on the very far south part of the storm. So probably you're looking at the northern part, a little farther north. Right below where the worst of the hail is most likely where, if there is a tornado, that's where it would be. We also have some storms starting to develop right now around the metro area. They're not severe, but the potential is certainly there that they will be flaring up here over the course of the next hour. You've already seen them pop right up, approaching the Blanchette Bridge at this point, also out in Dardenne Prairie, approaching Cottleville, and then we are on the metro east side here through Bethalto. Those storms popping up very quickly. So this is what we're watching for the next few hours, is rapid development. And if these storms can start to twist and turn and create circulations that could cause us problems.
Yeah, and it's obviously positive that we haven't been impacted in many other areas right now. And this is, like you mentioned, it's all about the twisting and turning and the favorable environment that we have for that right now. And that's why as you kind of loop it, you can see those storms start to turn just a little bit. And that's why we've had that tornado watch in place for us since this afternoon. And we only have this one tornado warning that's going in place for another 5 minutes. So we'll see if it's extended, if it's cut down, if it's pushed out of our area. But as Scott just mentioned, there are multiple storms that are still in the metro area. None of this is severe right now, but keep in mind it's moving over that same location that has proved favorable for storm development and some of those other ingredients that have caused that twisting and turning that produces those small, brief, weak tornadoes. And that's what we've seen so far. And so as we continue to monitor the potential for this tornado here, as you can see that even downstream now, it looks like they're going to continue to keep that severe thunderstorm warning now for Clay and Effingham. That's till 7:30, and that is going to be with, as all part of this, with 60-mile-an-hour wind gusts and quarter-sized hail. So I know, once again, that only clips kind of a small portion of our area, but what that tells us is they're going to allow the tornado warning to expire here in the next 2-3 minutes. So that's what we're looking at in terms of some of these storms. But, they all have this little bit of rotation and some of these cores of maybe larger quarter-sized hail right now, which are going to cause damage. But this is all still part of this specific storm in Fayette till 7:15. So for the next 2 to 3 minutes, this red polygon disappears. We'll give you an update, and we'll get you we'll get you to stay in your safe space for maybe 5 more minutes, and then we can kind of give you an all clear for certain portions of that. Up toward this storm near Raymond doesn't quite have that specific rotation, but there still are a few more storms behind it that we'll continue to monitor. You'll see these storms that are really near Hamel. This is not a severe thunderstorm warning, but we're still monitoring for the next 2 minutes or so that this is still at least starting to straighten out or giving us signs on many ways that we're not seeing this worthy of continuing the tornado warning at this point. So it looks like they're going to keep the tornado warning through 7:15 and then move it as it continues to move out of the county and out of the area to be a severe thunderstorm warning. So right now, like I mentioned, this is for another minute or so officially. Once again, looking at the velocity product, and you can see that some of this is starting to weaken just a little bit. I would probably say areas near Highway 57 north of Laclede probably have the better opportunity for any of that minor rotation. But you'll still see that, once again, as we kind of give you that refresher about how we so often point out these areas of small rotation here, that is the one right there where we're perhaps seeing a brief, weak tornado. You can see how that has kind of stretched out and now been what they've done, and they're going to allow this tornado warning to expire here, it looks like, over the next minute, and they're going to turn that tornado warning into a severe thunderstorm warning. That tells us that not only have we not observed a tornado, doesn't mean that it's not possible, but what we've seen is there still is the possibility for 40 to 60 mile an hour wind and quarter-sized hail with this. We've already observed some of this hail as storm spotters are around this area, and there's more eyeballs on 70 here. So those are the spots, those are the things that we're looking at here officially here until we get to about 7:15 within the next few seconds. So that's where we're going to look at, and I want to just kind of watch that red polygon disappear before I get off here and kind of give you one last little a bit of information here for Fayette County. So you have a couple of different things now for Fayette County. You are going to see this turn into a severe thunderstorm warning, and that goes until 7:30. So we're not going to stay on the air with you for that, but we are going to keep you posted about the expiration of that one at 7:15. It's within the next 10 seconds. It's really semantics to some degree as it transfers into a severe thunderstorm warning. And I just wanted to make it go away and then explain to you why that continues. This is all part of how the National Weather Service will continue to update products. You see that now. It's gone away. Now we're both into a severe thunderstorm warning. We watch these possible areas of rotation within it, but up to 60 mile an hour wind and larger hail. And as I zoom out, once again, those are the only two areas that are impacted by severe weather at this moment. We still look at more areas behind. I'm going to flash the radar on one more time before I let you get back to things. We still look at these areas as they move into this favorable environment, continue the possibility of twists and turns. That's why the tornado watch is in place for these specific areas until 10 o'clock. As we remain in storm alert, those are the areas that we're going to look at ahead. So right along the river and into the Metro East, these specific locations are involved in this. That's why we stay in storm alert, but I'm going to let you get back to watching whatever's on. I don't remember what it was because I wasn't paying attention. We were looking at this, but we'll keep you posted here, and we'll let you know, and we'll break back in if we got some more stuff going on as it impacts more people. You've been watching 5 on Your Side's Storm Alert coverage as part of our Weather First team.